So Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan is preparing to sign a new city budget that slashes police funding by 18%, despite homicides spiking to their highest level in a decade in her city. Will this only compound the situation?
Yeah, absolutely will. This is part of their perfect trifecta. They've already destroyed department policy. They've forced retirements to historic levels, and now they're defunding the police. And this defunding movement that they're taking, especially in Seattle, is targeting training, new hires, and overtime. So when there's crime in these cities, there's no one to investigate these crimes because crimes aren't planned. There's no allotted, time frame for that. So it falls into overtime. So they're not getting investigated properly. You're not getting the new hires to replace the overwhelming retirements that are happening. And training, this is their number one stigma of, we need better training for the police, but that's the first thing they cut. So it's an oxymoron on the policy level. It's an oxymoron on political level, and it's just being devastating, like you said, to the citizens and the tourists of these cities that are going to stop coming.
And we know progressives on the city council, they don't want to stop at 18%. In fact, they thought that number was way too low. We're looking at this number saying that's crazy. That's almost a quarter of the entire police department budget cut. And of course, the progressives are saying that's not good enough. They want it bumped up to as much as 50% defunding of the Seattle Police Department. Is that even feasible? Could the department even function properly with half of its budget gone?
These departments are having trouble functioning now. They're at minimum or below minimum manpower. They're not being crime skyrocketing in all the major Democratic cities across the nation. In Philadelphia, they have had over 2,000 people shot this year, and the highest rate of murders in 25 years. In November alone, they had 728 people shot. This is not just a Seattle problem. It's a Philadelphia problem. It's a Chicago problem. It's a New York problem. It's a Baltimore problem. And what do they all have in common? Is these policies, this let's attack police policies when we know nothing about them, based off a fraction of a percent of incidents nationwide, and let's defund the police movement. A lot of the defund the police movement is a shell game where they're moving traffic enforcement to different departments. Like in New York City, they're moving the traffic agents back to the DOT instead of under the NYPD. They're moving school safety, back under the Department of Education. So a lot of it's a shell game to say, oh, look, we defunded the police, but they're really not doing anything. They're just changing the names and the titles that they fall under.
When it comes down to it, looking at, where many of these police officers in Seattle, what their mindset must be like right now when they see, for the littlest thing that they could be brought up on charges because the very city lawmakers that they're supposed to protect, that they're sworn to protect, basically hate their guts and are taking away their police budget and are slashing their budget, taking away their training, doing all sorts of horrible stuff. What do you think the mindset is like for a lot of these Seattle officers? We know a lot of them are moving to different departments. A lot of them are taking early retirements. What does that feel like to have the very people you're sworn to protect and the community at large with Antifa and BLM rioters, always breathing down your throat in Seattle? What must that feel like?
It takes a toll. It's definitely taking a toll on not just the officer on the street, but the police leadership too. They're leaving in record numbers. They've just had enough. They cannot supervise under the kind of policies that they're being mandated under. This has been a multi-year progression of this defund the police movement. We've had 283 police officers shot this year. That's a 7% rise from last year and a 29% rise from 2018. So that's what these officers are going out and facing each day. Not only of the rhetoric and the harshness that they're getting from the communities they live in, but the actual danger they're walking out into. A 30% increase in police officers shot in the last 2 years, that's something to take into consideration when these officers put on a badge and gun and walk out the door.